Welcome to another episode of Gospel Entrepreneurs in partnership with UCB and Revelation Trust. I'm so excited today to have Craig Bunting with us, who owns a chain of restaurants called Bear Restaurants. He's a hard worker, he's passionate, he loves Jesus, and he really wants to make a difference in people's lives. But we're going to go back from that and just find out a little bit about him. So sit back, enjoy this conversation. It's kind of interesting that you called your restaurants Bear. Give us that story before we go back.
Yeah, so this is my own personal thing. I don't want people to start thinking we're the Bear, which is the Disney show, but we do have some nice trademarks over our brand name. So hopefully Disney's the Bear don't open any restaurants anytime soon, because that would cause me a bit of a headache. But I generally believe there's something about the name Bear, which is why we trademarked it. But I always played in bands. The idea of naming something was quite important to me. When you name a band, that's quite like when you start a band with your friends, you think of a name. That's quite big. I mean, I've had some names for our band. We had one called Minimum Wage. We had one called This Burning Depression, which was an emo band at the time. So naming something was quite important to me. And we wanted to have a name that felt like it suited our business. This was me and Michael, my co-founder, as we grew it. And it needed to reflect what we were trying to do as a business and how we wanted to grow in the next 5-10 years. We looked at Honest, but there was a burger chain in London at the time called Honest Burgers. We looked at Grindhouse, but it didn't really, like, when we pictured Grindhouse in Uttoxeter Market, High Street, Market Town of Uttoxeter, it didn't really fit. It didn't really have the vibe that we wanted. And at the time, we were just black and white. Our branding was black and white. And then my friend was going to call one of his kids Bear after Bear Grylls, getting inspired by that. He didn't in the end, but it was the first time I heard the word Bear in the idea as a name for something. And I was like, Bear, that's a wicked name. It's really powerful. It's quite strong. It's got nothing to do with coffee, but actually a bear is confident and has strength in its position, but it's also a teddy bear. It's cuddly, it's approachable, it's inclusive, and it's a teddy. And I was like, as a business, I want to make sure that if you scratch the surface, we've got detail. We know our stuff, but we're not going to throw it in your face. The specialty coffee industry at the time could have been perceived as quite pretentious, that I know more about coffee than you do, so you suddenly don't feel included. And we wanted to make sure that our business was as inclusive as possible. I think that's really important, to be an inclusive brand. So this idea of a bear that was the name of something that was confident and powerful and strong, but also inclusive and approachable, it fitted. And we called it Bear Coffee Co. to begin with. And as we grew the brand, and as we introduced brunch, and as we introduced cocktails into the evening, we reduced that Coffee Co. down to Bear. So now our business trades as Bear.
Great, amazing story. And Bear Grylls was the root to it, which is kind of interesting. And looking at Bear. But let's go back a bit, Craig. So tell us a little bit about you. People listening, they may not have a clue. Where are you from? Are you from Uttoxeter, or just give us a bit of your story before we get into the business?
Yeah, from Uttoxeter, grew up. Dad was a wall and floor tiler. So I guess I always was around self-employed. When it was my dad's turn to babysit, I'd be digging holes in a pile of sand on a building site somewhere. My dad would have me grouting up some tiles when I was a little bit older, just to learn stuff. So I've been around the idea of entrepreneurialism, or at least working for yourself and creating your own element of success, whatever we deem success to be. My journey into faith was a family, the Campions, that I was friends with. I was skateboarding with them. We used to skateboard on Summerfield car park in Uttoxeter, and they used to go to church, and that kind of opened the door into a youth club. It opened the opportunity for me to explore faith, and it's been a journey that I've been on since then, kind of teenage years. And it's been a journey. I'm probably closer to what most people's Christian journeys are like, as opposed to what the idealistic Christian journey might be like as I've grown up. I went to uni.
Oh, you did go to uni?
Yeah, so I never wanted to go to uni. The only reason I went to uni, and this is kind of important because it kind of fits into how Bear fits into my brain, is I was playing in bands at the time. I generally thought we were going to be rock stars. I went to college after school to do IT, and it was boring as heck. Like, I couldn't stand it. I was so bored. In that summer, my friends, the Campions, emigrated back to Australia. So in summer, my 18th birthday, I flew out and spent a good amount of time in Australia. And I loved it. And then when I came back, I was like, I'm not going to go back to college and do IT. It's just not me. It was boring. It wasn't the thing that I was interested in. So I quit. And because my dad had his own business, I just spent the rest of the year tiling with him and getting paid an all right amount of money because I knew what I was doing, because he'd taught me since I was probably about 7. I started looking at music courses, and I went to Derby, and I saw Derby College did a music course, and there was a module within that course. I was a bass player. I was playing 1 string on a 4-string instrument. So I'll call myself a bass player, but I was limited. But I went to college to do music, and one element of that was music business. And because I was the bass player, I was the guy running the business of the band, this module at uni, I was very naturally good at it. Everything made sense. Everything I was doing in a band suddenly made more sense because I was learning the theory and the approach to it. So then I was like, I wonder if there's a uni course that is music and business. And if I wanted to be an artist manager or work for a record label, what does that look like? And there was at Buckinghamshire Children's University, which is, I think it's Bucks New Uni in High Wycombe. They had a music management course with studio production as a bolt-on. So I learned music business, a bit of law, how to be an artist manager, contracts, record releases, marketing campaigns, and studio, so the creative bit. And I loved it. I loved being at uni. I loved doing that course. Because of that course, my band signed a contract with the biggest independent music distributor in the UK. We put records in HMV. We were in every magazine you can imagine, Kerrang magazine, Rock Sound. We were doing all that. And that was all me just putting theory into practice in a creative setting. Anyway, long story short, the band didn't work out. I'm not a rock star. So we parked all that. But because that identity stopped, I was a passenger on this train of trying to be a rock star. It ended for whatever reason, and I didn't know what to do next. So I packed my bags, told my friend, let's go to Australia, and we went traveling. And we traveled around Asia and Australia for a while, came back, tried to get back into the music industry again, got a job working for free in London, hated it because I was working for free. And I thought, I'm not a mug, I'm not going to work for free, that's stupid. So I got a different job in marketing, working for a power tool brand called Ryobi. As a sales role, then progressed into the marketing communications team and the brand team, and I was getting paid. So I was like, well, I value myself to get paid rather than working for free. No longer trying to be a rock star, still enjoyed music, working in marketing, progressed my way up a little bit, relocated back to the Midlands, got another job. That job was similar on paper, but it didn't have the creativity. I guess power tools didn't have creativity, but because I knew it, because I'd worked with my dad on building sites, I understood the product. The end user was a building site joiner. I could relate to that. Music made business come alive. That building industry made the marketing element of Ryobi come alive. I got to this new job and I couldn't gel. There was no creativity. So it didn't work out. I was getting married that summer. I quit my job, got married, packed our bags, and me and Lisa went traveling around Australia. So every time I'm almost like, something doesn't work, pack my bags, go to Australia.
Yeah, it would appear so.
This time it was different. I was traveling with my wife, not my friend. So the experience of traveling was slightly different. I was probably in a slightly different walk with my faith at the time. But in that trip, there was a coffee shop called Vandy's. And I just kind of fell in love with this idea of hospitality, this idea of coffee, creating my own space and just having this business around a product that I enjoyed. And I came home and I started unpacking this idea of having a coffee shop with Michael, who is my co-founder of Bear. And we both attached ourselves to this because it was a product of coffee, which is there's a process to coffee. You want to change one variable at a time. You want to work to get a higher quality of end product, and it needs to be consistent. There's no point in having one coffee that's really good and the other coffee is average. The consistency is really important. So we both applied ourselves to that. But the coffee industry is very creative. Fitting out a coffee shop is very creative in interior design and layout, aesthetics, brand position. So suddenly it felt like I was in a band again. The stage was my bar area. The venue was the coffee shop. The audience was the guests. My bandmate was Michael, and the product, writing music, was every coffee we made. And it felt like I could fully apply myself to this idea, but I was, instead of a passenger on a journey with 5 other people in a band, I was co-frontman with Michael, writing our own story of what we wanted hospitality to look like within our business, what we wanted our product to be, and what we wanted our business to stand for. And even though he doesn't have the same faith as me, we still were on a journey together that our values aligned. And I think that's really important. We had the same shared values of what we wanted to create, the fact that we wanted to have an inclusive business. But yeah, a long journey of digging holes in a sandpit, trying to be a rock star, traveling to Australia numerous times, and then owning a coffee shop in New Toxis.
Well, and amazingly, we were just talking earlier, that biblical framework for hospitality is core to what Jesus did and how he did it. And you're now holding that as a real value. But give us the story, because you came back from Australia, you didn't have any money, you had this dream of an idea, and now you have, is it 5 restaurants, coffee shops?
No, so we've got, like, it's amazing and incredibly grateful. We've got 8 coffee shops, kitchens and bars, because we serve coffee from the morning all the way through into the evening, serving cocktails. So we've got 8 stores across 5 counties. Our most southern store is in Dorset. So that's it's incredible that we've managed to achieve that. And it all started in our hometown, essentially. Coming back from Australia, I started to talk to Michael about the idea, started to talk to Lisa about the idea. And we were in like a bit of an outhouse at my dad's. We call it a shed, but it was where I was going to turn this outhouse into a recording studio and band practice room. But because the band kind of disappeared, we went down the route of putting a little bit of a kitchen in there and a toilet, and I had my own space. So Michael would come round, we'd play Xbox, and I brought this coffee machine from Lidl, middle aisle of Lidl, so the way all the bargains are, I guess. And I started buying some coffee and started making it, and we went on that journey. So we're making coffee, we're talking about the product. It was in 2014 that we incorporated our business, because that's when we started looking at shops. We started going to the coffee roastery. We started really honing the skill and deep diving into what the business should look like, what are the costs involved in it. So we didn't go blindly into just renting a shop and opening it. We opened our first shop in February 2016. So that there's a good chunk of time there of really understanding what we're trying to do. And even before we incorporated the business, we were still researching what do heads of terms look like? How do you rent a shop? What does renting a shop even look like? How do I make sure we're within certain acts within the lease? What should our rents be? We started really understanding the nuances around it. We could shortcut some of that now with ChatGPT and stuff. It gives us all that information a lot quicker. But back then, it was just a lot of research, a lot of asking questions from people that we maybe seen rent a shop before and stuff. And we opened our first one, and we opened it in New Toxis. We had Anna Passy, who's in Hollyoaks, open it for us, and there was queued all the way down the high street, and there was a very noisy opening. Everyone knew about it because of Anna, more so me and Michael and our brand. Of course. But it created noise, and that was the brand bit for me. If we're in a market town, we're making a lot of noise in a smaller space. It created us a platform to be able to amplify what we're doing. No one was really doing paid media at the time within those kind of locations. So we were starting to spend a bit of money on paid media. So we were getting more awareness about the brand and what we were doing. And my branding bit came alive, and people attached themselves to this cool brand that was opening on New Toxis High Street. So much so that when we opened our second store, we managed to get investment 6 months in. That investment helped us open our second store in Derby. And off the back of opening our second store in Derby, we got seen by the property guys for Jack Wills, who invited us to open a store in London. And we had a store in London in one of the Jack Wills flagship stores just off Carnaby, all because of the noise that we were making, opening our small independent brand versus what the noise that they were making, opening their very big Jack Wills brand. There's power in brand. There's power in being able to amplify what you're doing to an audience. But you do have to have the substance. You have to deliver the goods, I guess, if someone was to walk through your doors.
Yeah, because there's risk around brand as well, isn't there? And all of that alongside it. But it was obviously your learning that you went into when you went down to that, when you changed university course that has given you all this backdrop that you actually were bringing that expertise to what you were now doing in this business, which is not just coffee. You do food, you do cocktails, you do everything.
Yeah, there's an incredible amount of learning, but a lot of it was exactly what you said. I'm not afraid to test and learn because I've always been around the idea of testing and learning or seeing a situation. I used to walk into a kitchen with my dad and you've just got a concrete floor in front of you that you've got a tile. Well, where'd you start? Well, you've got to find your center line. So what do you want to come square off? So you're immediately starting to apply thinking, and then not every room's square. Like, how do you approach that? So you've always got to think based on even though you're applying tiles to a floor, every floor's different. Every room's different, every shape's different. So I've already got that thinking that I'm pulling. I already understand money comes in, money goes out, what's left, how do you manage it? Because when I was self-employed tiling a little bit, I would get a job, I'd price it, I'd start the work, I'd have to buy the materials. I'm not going to get paid until after the job. So how do I manage money in between? I'm learning that at a smaller scale, but it's all learning, because if you're learning that smaller scale position, now I'm fortunate that I've got a finance director that supports more. But until a year ago, we never had a finance director. One of my investors, Chris, was high up in finance roles, so he had an understanding that he could share his knowledge with us as we were learning. But I had to understand how to use Xero, which is our accounting software. And all of that learning was just done from them very early days to now we're managing like £2 million worth of payroll. That's a big weight to carry, but we've learned how to manage that bigger number because we managed the smaller number first. And then from the branding element, it was like, it's creative. It's such a fun industry. You're dealing with people and the nuances of people and the fact that they're attracted to something about the product, the brand, the food, the cocktails. And you can show that in pictures, visuals, interior designs. Yeah, I love it.
You've never been fearful of hard work. So you've actually done the hard work to learn so that you're not just relying on other people. You've actually, no, I want to learn this so that I know what I don't know, but also what I do need to know to enable it to happen. And you've done a Gospel Entrepreneurs 24 Hours. We did an analysis of his business with Patrick Dixon, who is quite a futurist and a great thinker and strategist. And he actually took Craig's business in one that he could evaluate and look at. So you've been part of this journey with us as well, Craig. But just give us where you're now landing, because you are still thinking, you're in the process of developing other stores and whatever. But hospitality is your unique USP. It's always been there, but you're making it even stronger. Give us a bit of that story, Craig.
I guess you can start businesses in two ways. The principles of why you start it, I think they need to be solid. We never started there with the idea of maximizing profits or just making lots of money. We wanted to have something that we were incredibly proud of, that we wanted to own. And I think that's really important. Now, if you're starting a business and you're well funded because you've got money behind you, that's not a bad thing. That's great. But you still got there because you've already picked up skills in that earlier journey. Whereas this was my first business I've started. So we had to learn everything. I had to understand everything. And the value of knowing that is that there's very little within our business that I don't have a surface level understanding of. Some stuff I can go a bit deeper in. Some stuff I'm naturally more attracted to than other stuff. But there is very little that I'm not a generalist in because of what we've had to do. And I can have conversations with our FD that he knows way more about finance than me, but there's questions that I will ask because I don't know everything about the detailed bits of finance that he might not necessarily think about, or I might change his trajectory of thinking, or I might spark an idea that means that he's now, with his expertise, is able to formulate into a plan that's better because an idea has been sparked in a different way. And I think that's, as you build teams, it's really good to get stuck into stuff, but don't get trapped in not being able to let go to people that are better than you at it. I think by getting stuck into everything, you can formulate the position, not being able to let go. The joy of having a co-founder from the very beginning with Michael, for me, was that we've already collaborated on pretty much everything. So actually, letting go of something is very natural to us. So bringing in an FD or bringing in an ops director or bringing in a marketing manager, those elements are very easy for us to do because we're actually want to bring in people that are better than us because we know how we can coach them. Where we are now is we've got a great senior team now. We've got 8 stores. We've got some good revenue numbers. We've got some great growth plans. Me and Michael are almost evaluating where do we sit as co-founders? How do we lead our team? Because we a bit of imposter syndrome, really. Like, if I've got an SD that knows finance better than me, I've got an ops director who knows ops better than me, I've got a marketing manager that can be a marketing. Have I just made myself redundant? And actually, what we've very quickly realised is there's value that we can put into these people because of what we've done over the last 9 years that some of the people have never done. They're experts in what they're doing, but they haven't been on that journey. And now we're almost anchoring out what's important to us as a business. What are our values? What's our purpose? We've been talking about it for 9 years, but let's really formulate that so that someone can actually take it forward and lead it. And one of them elements was we've always been a coffee brand. So, well, if we're open from day to night, are we a coffee brand? Coffee is a product of what we do that we're extremely passionate about, and we can sell it into your kitchen, into your office. We sell it in our stores. But we also do great brunch, and 50% of our revenue is food. So maybe we're a food brand. Well, actually, are we a food brand? Because nothing happens if we don't have people. Oh, so we're a people brand. Okay, we're starting to understand, like, what are we as a business? And then this idea of great hospitality starts to come through. If it's a really good coffee, but your service or your someone's not hospitable to you, is it really a great cup of coffee? If someone's coming to us for the entire experience. So we talk about our why is inspiring adventure, connection, and lifestyle. That's the why. So if we're going to do something in the long term, we can always say, does it inspire adventure, connection, and lifestyle? And if it does, tick. Next one, what's our how? Very Simon Sinek, if anyone listens to it. Our how is we're a people-first brand delivering a great product experience in places that inspire adventure, connection, and lifestyle. People, product, and place are our anchors. If it doesn't involve people, whether it's 1 or 101, if it doesn't involve product, whether that's coffee, brunch, cocktails, whatever, or hospitality is a product, and if it doesn't involve place, whether we're on top of Thought Cloud doing a pop-up, we're at a skate park doing an event, or we're in a coffee shop on a high street in Wimborne or Uttoxeter or Stone or Nottingham, why are we there and what positive impact can we have? And think about our spaces. We've got 8 stores and they're all in buildings that could be empty. The Irongate one was empty for 5 years before we opened Bear. The one in Uttoxeter was empty for 5 years before we opened Bear. Would it still be empty now when we've invested hundreds of thousands of pounds in bringing that space alive that becomes some of the beacons of the high street that employ 20 odd people per site? I think that's a massive measure of success around that product and that place and the people. So hospitality for me is, I want to make sure our teams are hospitable to each other, and I want to make our teams are hospitable to our guests, and our spaces almost nurture that idea of hospitality. They're warm, they're inviting. There's things there, there's Wi-Fi. People walk in, they're seen and they're valued. We are incredibly grateful for every single pound that everyone spends in our shops, and we want to value that. And I think that hospitality piece just trumps everything. It's so important. And our coffee is phenomenal, but coffee gets to a point where it's subjective. Our hospitality has to be like a huge part of what we do. And for me, there's elements that I see in the Bible that are just, there's so much hospitality around Jesus and the Bible that I'm like, yeah, like this is not going to be a bad thing if we were to be if one of our anchors was to be the most hospitable coffee or restaurant brand in the UK, that wouldn't be a bad value to have. Now, different for Michael. For me, there can be that faith element that I can attach myself to. But I mean, we should be hospitable anyway, right?
Absolutely right. And Jesus was amazing at hospitality and eating and sharing and that whole experience of place and food, and not just food, but in the way that you react to others, the way you value others. Craig, we're coming into land. I know you've got a bit of a dream to go bigger and wider and greater, but it's because you want people to experience this hospitality and to have a unique space that your stores bring. People may be listening, they've heard your story. What would you give to them as we come into land, and maybe a little bit about where you're going for Bear in the future?
I think we can be a global brand. I say to my team, and some of them probably laugh at me, I want to be the next Red Bull. I want to be a brand that can have that much impact. I want to have enough money that we generate to be able to spend back on our business, so that if there's a rundown skate park near where we're opening a store, that we could bring that skate park alive. We could open the store, invest in that community. Because of our brand power and authority, we can get some pro skaters to come down. We can get Etnies, vans to come down. We could give skateboards away to young people. Like, I can't write that on a P&L that makes sense, because it doesn't. But I want to grow a brand that can have great impact. I want to open stores on high streets where people can come and feel included and they can connect with other people. So I want to create spaces. So I don't want to open shops for the sake of opening shops. That's not the point. I don't want to grow for the sake of growth, but I do want to grow. I think we can be a global brand. I think we can have products like iced coffee. We've got tea going into houses, coffee going into houses. We've got our shops. We've got e-commerce. We've got our trade element, putting coffee into offices. There's some big asks. I think the people that back us financially believe in the vision, but I think there's always room to have the right people on the journey with us. It requires money to grow. So we are raising the last little bit of finance at the moment. I think there's room for someone to fund the elements that maybe don't make sense as much, because it's easy for me to do a business model and open 20 more shops and show how it makes financial sense. My passion is, let's make it more than that. Let's not just open shops because it makes financial sense. Let's open shops because it has incredible impact on communities. If that excites you, then reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to people. I want to build something that can have good impact, and I want to build it with a team that buy into the impact that we're having, and we're not doing it to maximize profits. We're doing it to balance profit with an element of purpose. And I say that carefully because I know it can be greenwashed or purpose washed if you're not careful, but I want to make sure what we do is something I want to own.
Brilliant, Craig. It's been amazing to speak with you. And I've had the privilege of coming into one of your coffee shops, restaurants in Nottingham, which was a real experience. It's also been great to connect with you. You're a guy that is teachable. You're hungry to learn, but your value is really what makes you do what you do, which is what I love. And your faith has been a big part of that. I even remember you telling me the story where you were right at the edge of something and God just came through for you, particularly on a financial issue. The energy that you have is clearly there, but also the fact that hard work was a part of it and you invested, and that's what people pick up from what you've done. And to get to where you've got to in 9 years, 10 years, it takes hard work. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And hopefully people just pick up, like, I'm a normal person. I'm not trying to be the Christian that everyone thinks you should be. I've got my flaws. I do my best. I genuinely love Jesus and I don't have the answers for everything else. Simple as that. And I think there's just a lot of people out there that maybe are turned off by faith because they don't think they can be who they need to be to have the faith. And it's much simpler than that, right?
It's been great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us, Craig, and appreciate all that you're doing.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening. It was another episode with Gospel Entrepreneurs and UCB, and it's been great to hear Craig and just catching his passion, but also the values that he's bring is the takeaway. And I hope you've been inspired to go for it. And thank you for listening. God bless you.